Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Your Excellency. And Ms. Noor Zarrar, as you see in your agenda before you, this session is a blended session, so we stay safe. I want to echo the words of Ms. Noor. And to start with, we're going to have a very deep dive into some of the banking issues, which I know is a challenge for everybody. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Khaldoun Karajeh from the Housing Bank for Trade and Finance, who's going to talk to us about all these issues. He will give his presentation slide, and then we will have a chance to have questions and answers. So please, without further ado.
Good morning, everybody. And actually, it is our pleasure as a housing bank to participate in this event. And it is a pleasure for me to participate my bank in this event. And I hope you will get benefits from this session because we have maybe traders in our country, Jordan. And I hope that some info can help our traders to improve their trading, even they are exporters or they are importers. As you know, that the international trade actually started maybe with the human begins and improved over centuries. And you can imagine that the trade volume at the 90s, at the beginning of the 90s, reached $3.5 trillion, while by the end of 2019, it has reached $19.5 trillion. This is a huge amount, represents that how much the country is concentrated to improve this important sector in the GDP actually. And I believe all countries now in the world is aiming to increase their trade volume and to improve their trade balance by increasing their export in comparison to their imports. We will start now to see what the risk may face our traders, even exporters or importers. Risk related to foreign trade. In this session, I will try as much as I can to get some advices to our traders, even exporters or even importers, to improve their participation in the trade deal and how can they mitigate the risk in the trade transaction. Because any trading transaction actually will not get zero risk. There will be a risk, but they must act to reduce this risk as much as they can. So we will take a look for the risk faced the traders in any country actually when they deal in the foreign trade deal. The distance between buyer and seller, as you know now, the exporter in a country and the importer in another country, there is a long distance between them. If we talk that exporter in Jordan will export goods to the USA, there is a huge or a long distance. So the distance is constituted one of the risks faced the traders, even the buyers or the exporters actually. The transportation or transport the goods takes time and costs money. As you know, there's a shipping company in the middle, there's insurance in the middle, not insure the goods, and there is money for many kinds of cost when the goods transporting from another country. Mistakes and misunderstandings will be expensive to both right and can cause great inconvenience to both buyer and seller. This is the first risk faced by even the exporter or the importer. So the distance. The second risk that the exporter, he must know the honesty. He must make evaluation to the honesty of the importer. Our exporters maybe they do not need to heavily need to study the honesty of the importers because they need to know if the importer will pay for against the exporting goods or not. So the dealing with buyers of understanding it is a customer risk or a credit risk. So the exporters have to assess both the honesty and financial standing of overseas buyers. They don't know related risk include goods are retained by a dishonest buyer and not paid for. So the dishonesty of the buyers, this is a huge risk for the exporter in general. Buyers are slow or have delayed to pay for supplied goods, which are shipped to a buyer will either can or won't pay for it. So the exporter must not make any trade deal with any buyer. They must study the honesty or assess the honesty of the importers in general. We have restrictions imposed by the overseas governments or countries. As you know, there's many regulations in many countries. So the exporter, when decides to export the goods to a country, he must know what the regulations may restricted his exporting to his country. This is a very important, element. Many countries, as you know, have very specific requirements for labeling, packaging, for some kind of goods. Many countries require documentary evidence for compliance with local legislations. For example, when we in Jordan import, for example, meat, the meat must be accompanied with the halal slaughtering document. So this is very important for the exporting, for the exporter from Australia, for example, for a meat to Jordan, to know that he must provide this document to let this good pass the custom in Jordan.
So all the meat has to be halal imported in
Yes.
condition?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. This is a custom requirement in Jordan. Yeah.
It's not a custom.
And
Prerequisite.
yes, but it must be done, seen by the custom. Yes. Releasing of goods by custom is subject to certain approvals from internal parties. For example, the medicine, some chemicals goods, they must have pre-approved from internal parties in some countries. Ban on the sale of certain goods. There is restriction for selling on some goods. So when I export goods to another country, I should know if this good is acceptable in this country or not. This is a risk. Exchange control regulations, the FX matter. If there are any control over the exchange for the currencies or not, this is a very high risk when we deal with another countries. Sanctions imposed by buyers countries or foreign countries against certain countries. As you know, there are sanctions now against some parties. There is many international listing. I have listed many names, so I have to know if the importing country, the importer, or even the board in the way to ship these goods are sanctioned or not. For the importer, what the risk? The risk for the importer is simply that I ordered goods. Is I received what I ordered or not? Is the goods I received is in good situation or not? Is I received it in damage or not? Is I received what I required or not? Is I received the goods with my specification or not? This is a very considered risk for the importers. And actually, many of our clients or the importers in Jordan face this problem. They pay for the documents, but when they release the goods from the custom, they discover even the quantity is not complete, it is not in full. The good, there is damage in the goods. The specifications are not comply for what they require previously from the exporter. As for the exporters and the importers, what the risk for both parties? Actually, different countries use different legal systems, legislations, and laws. As you know, each country in the world have a different legal system, has a different financial system, has different commercial practices or customs practices. So when disputes arise, they must be resolved at a distance. However, if they can't be resolved, it will be very expensive for the exporter and importer to take legal action in the other party's country. So different legal systems between countries is the risk for even the importer and the exporter. Suppose that we have dispute, there is argument between us for what law we can go to the laws of the importer country or the laws for the exporting country. So one of them must go fly to another country to solve this issue. This is a high risk actually when the trade transaction is held between importers and exporters. So what are the rules of banks to take such risk? Actually, the banks currently playing a high role to facilitate the trade transactions between the exporters and importers, because as you know, The banks have clients, even exporters or importers. So the banks can play a high qualitative role to facilitate trade transactions between both parties. How can that happen? The bank can act as a channel of communication for payments. As you know, if I import an exporter, Jordanian exporter, and ship goods to USA, then the US importer needs to pay me. How he can pay me? I need money from him. The payment now is affected by banks because the banks built a huge network between each other. Each bank in the world has correspondent in other countries, and they have an authentication channel for payment between them and for correspondent actually between them. I can contact any bank in the world currently through the SWIFT. The SWIFT is an application established by a Swift company, which is located at La Hague in Belgium. This company gives each bank in the world a big code of 11 codes or 11 letters, and through this code, the banks can contact each other in many kind of correspondence, in LCs or in LGs or in payments in general. So the banks play this role to facilitate the communication between both parties as well as the payment from one party to another. Okay, what can banks also play in this regard? The bank can make control over the goods. As you know, once the supplier exports the goods, it becomes out of his control because he ships the goods with a carrier overseas. It is a long distance. So how can the supplier still have the control over the goods? Easily, if he appointed the bank to take the documents, the commercial documents required by the importer to release the good, then the bank can have control on behalf of the seller on this product or on this good. So the banks can hold the documents of title, the bill of lading, on behalf of the seller until the buyer pay what the amount required by him. The banks also can be the owner or the owner of this goods. If I, as exporter, issue the bill of lading from the carrier to the order of a bank, then the bank will be the owner now of this goods, and he will not endorse this bill of lading to the importer unless this importer pay this value of such goods. So the seller will be comfortable now that since he appointed the bank to control these goods, then he will, in general, he will reserve his right to take his money against the shipped goods. The banks, as you know, can give financial backing for the transaction. Currently, the buyers as well as the exporters need some financial in the trade transaction. In general, the buyers, the cash flow of the buyers, force him to take some finance from banks to cover this transaction. The exporter as well. Okay, I am exporter for a goods, but I need money to import the raw material to manufacture this goods. If I don't have this cash money, I can save my cash and take some financial from the bank. The bank in general, in the transaction, like letter of credit or standby receipts, can back the transaction by their financial backing and also by from their resources. The bank have their money and they can back the transaction and pay for the goods to the exporter and can even finance the importer to improve their cash flow once needed by them. Also, I can, as a bank, back the transaction by my reputation, by my name. When I issue a letter of credit in favor of exporter or a standby LC or a payment guarantee, the seller will be comfortable that there is a reputable party can back my transaction and I can feel comfort when I ship the goods because there's some reputable party and well-known party can back me in this transaction and can assure the payment of my shipped goods. Okay. The banks can apply the international codes of practice. As we informed previously, different countries mean different legal systems, mean different financial systems, mean different customs practice, means different commercial systems. Now, as you know, there is an independent institution established in 1919, which is the International Chamber of Commerce, established in Paris by maybe the foreign countries or the biggest countries at the beginning. This International Chamber of Commerce actually act as an independent institution to cover the international trade between exporters and importers and give each party what they required from them. Actually, they apply what we call the international rule or international code. The International Chamber of Commerce issued many series of universal guidelines, which in case of dispute, there is no need for the importer or the exporter to get to any of the legal system of one country. They can easily go to these rules because it covers this transaction, subject that transaction is covered by this rule. Actually, the banks who can apply this codes. We have many codes, harmonize the practice and prevent misunderstandings issued by the International Chamber of Commerce. We have the UCP 600 for ACs, the URC 522 for bills for collection, the URR 725, which is specialized for the reimbursement or payment between banks. We have the URP 758, which is the rules for letter guarantees. We have the ICPP 745, which tells the bank how they can examine documents under the LCs, and we have all the input terms. We'll talk about the input terms after a while. Now, actually, when Lana comes to my office, she told me that Hamori will talk about the contract of sale. But I insist actually to talk about the contract of sale, the technical parts of the contract of sale, because the contract of sale is very important, something for both the exporter and the importer. There is no any trade transaction effected in this world without having or covered by the contract of sale. If we have built as exporter and importer a clear and complete contract of sale, then the trade transaction will be effected successfully. But if we miss or we have any gap in the contract of sale, then believe me, there will be a failure in the trade transaction after that. So the contract of sale is a major component, is a major part, is a major element to get successful trade transaction between both parties, the exporters and the importers. And we must insert all needed data in such contract. For me, I will talk about the technical components needed by both parties to establish this contract of sale, because the contract of sale is restricted to both parties, the importer and the exporter only. But how can the deal established from the beginning? Now, I am a buyer, need to import a good from a country. I have to study, first of all, my counterparty as importer, and the exporter on the other side must study the honesty and the financial position of his counterparty as well. So, if I know my seller and I investigate the seller, as a buyer, I will send him an inquiry or request. Hey, X company, I need from you Y goods with the following specifications. I know that you supply this goods or you have this goods. Okay, I send him inquiry for what I need. Okay. I send him inquiry for what I need. I introduce myself to him, inquiring about the required goods. Introduce my company, my name, my activity. On the other side, the seller, when he receives the data, he will send me the quotation. He will send me the specifications of the goods. He said, okay, I have what you need. This is the goods you need. This is the specification of the goods you need. This is the quantity. This is the unit price of each item of these goods, and this is the total price of the goods. I can deliver the goods against the input term or delivery term. We will talk about it after a while. And this is my price. And the quotation is expired on. He must insert the quotation expiry date. So he sent me a quotation. But before that, after deciding to go ahead with the deal and start business, both parties must be careful in choosing their counterparty as I informed. Do not make business with anyone. This is advice for even the importer and the exporter. Please do not make business with anyone. You must have reference. Be sure of the integrity of your counterparty. How can I know this integrity of my counterparty? How can I know his integrity or his eligible to participate with me in this trade transactions? We have many sources of that. You can go to your bank. He can help you in investigation of the other party. Your local chamber of commerce, you can check the counterparty through your local chamber of commerce and or the counterparty chamber of commerce. As you know, I can go to the chamber of commerce in Jordan to their website and I can investigate if this company is participating in this chamber of commerce or chamber of industry, and as he can do it as well. The commercial representative with the embassy, I can go to the commercial representative in the embassy of the counterparty country, and I can told him that I need to deal with this company. Please give me some info about them. Are they really exist? Are they really specialized in these goods, and so on? Now, when the importer and exporter agree on the deal, they want to prepare an agreement which must be written and signed by both parties. And it could take the form of full sale contract, preferable to be prepared by lawyers, but it should be, yes, even full sales contract, or we can make a simple sale contract like the pro forma invoice or purchase order. But on the both choices, we need to make it full. Each data, each component must be inserted in such contract. Yes.
I was confused with me when they do the sale without that actual one, do the formal invoice and can you explain more? I think you did, but I didn't understand it. Just this as a specific, how does that work really?
Actually, it is better to have full contract of sale to get all data needed to this trade transactions. The name of the exporter and importer, the goods will be ordered from buyer, from the exporter, the unit price, the quantity, the total price, and the other costs will accompany this trade transaction. We have another cost like shipping cost, insurance cost, loaded, unloaded cost. All of these costs must be inserted in the contract of sale, and we need to know as a buyer and exporter the total cost of shipping these goods from me as exporter to you as importer. The other cost will be represented by the input term. We will explain it now. So I need the specification, we will see it now. I need the unit price, the quantity, the specification of the goods. This is very important. Yani we should insert the whole specification of the goods to not have any dispute in the future. Okay? The total goods is important to know what the cost as the goods I will order from exporter. The other cost accompany this transaction, and the major component as well, the payment here, how I will pay as importer for the exporter. I will pay him through advance payment or open account or letter of credit or bills for collection. We'll see it now, and I have to insert the terms of shipment. We will explain it now. But normal invoice is the same concept.
Or a bill of lading, or an LP. Those work instead of a full one.
Those work on every kind of method of payment. Yani the contract of sale not restricted to LC. We have 4 payments we will see in international trade. The sales contract is the cover, is the large cover to cover these transactions, even paid by LC or BC or open account or advance payment. which are the four methods in payment in international trade. So the Proforma invoice, it is a contract of sale, but it is a short contract of sale, but it must contain all details as well as the full contract of sale. But it is a short, there is no much details mentioned in this Proforma invoice as the contract of sale. For example, I see contract of sale around 200 pages. If the goods is like to establish a manufacture or a big preferably deal, while the Proforma invoice signed mainly for the goods, it's have very much specifications. It is like meat, like milk, like whatever. But the contract of sale actually is always include all specifications of a good, especially if the goods need to be inserted in details. Now we will talk about the components of the sales contract. Actually, we have 6 components to be inserted in the contract of sale. Exporter seller and importer buyer must know that the trade transaction is generated from complete and clear sale contract. This is, let us say, it is a law. Without a clear contract of sale, we will not have success or complete trade transaction. The component must be inserted in the sales contract. We have the names and addresses for both exporter and importer, the required goods, and the specification of the required goods, the required shipping documents, what the documents needed by importer to release the goods at the custom in this country, like invoice, bill of lading, packing list, etc. We will talk them now. The terms of shipment. It is a major component, the 3 T's now we have. The terms of shipment, the terms of delivery, the Incoterm, and the terms of payment. How can the importer pay for the exporter against this good? I will talk them in details now. The names, the seller and exporter must insert their legal names and legal addresses actually. How can each party must check the correctness of the legal name of the counterparty? I can check the legal name from the Chamber of Commerce, the commercial representative, my bank may help me, but the legal names of both exporter and importer is very important to be inserted in full in the contract of sale. Their addresses as well. Now the required goods, this is the second component of the sale contract. The contract must include the quality of the contracted goods, the products, description and specifications. I must insert what goods I needed. Specification, please. It is a must to insert the specifications of the required goods, because any missing specification or item may affect these goods when I receive it in my country at the border. This is very important. Full details of same are preferable. We need to insert full specifications of the goods. For example, if I will build a manufacturer, for example, as you know, the machines, there is a link between them. If I miss any small item, then the big 2 items will not be matched. This is very important actually to insert if the goods is the full specification of the required goods. The quantity actually, I need to, as I told, the exporter sent the quotation and they agreed on the quantity. Okay, what the quantity, what the unit price of the quantity, what the total amount of the good. We must insert, as you know, there's many goods have items. I need to insert the item specification, its price and its total amount, and as well, when I calculate the whole items, we will have the goods value. Now the required shipping documents. As you know, there is no any goods shipped from country and imported by another country without any documents. Any goods exporting from a country to a country, it must be accompanied with documents for the commercial or the shipping documents. Without these documents, even the exporter cannot release the goods from his custom, and the importer cannot release the goods from his custom. So the shipping documents are, it is the major component that accompany the actual trading transaction or the shipment of goods from a country to a country. What the required goods or the shipping goods may require. Actually, we have the commercial invoice, as you know, we have the bill of lading or the transport company or the airway bill, depending on the method of shipment. We have the certificate of origin, we have the packing list, we have the insurance policy, we have many other documents that related to this item. For example, if we have food, we need the health certificate. If we have medicine, we need analysis certificate and so on. Without these documents, no any goods will be released from exporting country, and as well it will not enter the importing country, because the goods the goods actually is, let us measured by its documents. Okay, it is the evidence that there is goods shipped from country to another country. But these documents depend on what? And how I can choose these documents in my trading transaction? Depend on what? Depend on type of goods. As I told you, if I have meat, I have to get the health certificate. If I have medicine, I may request the analysis certificate. If I have, for example, home appliances, I don't need actually. I have maybe the
energy efficiency.
what's that?
The energy efficiency.
Yes. Yes. يعني the type of goods allow us to know what the documents are required. As you know, that the custom requirement or the legislation requirement in my country told me what I have to have to other documents to accompany these goods. As I told you, the slaughtering, the halal slaughtering document. The method of shipment. If I have, if the shipment will be affected by sea, the vessel, I have to get the bill of lading. If the shipment by plane, I have to get the airway bill. If by truck, I have to get the truck consignment note. So the mode of shipment tell us what document I need as evidence to be, to evidence this shipment of goods that will be issued by the carrying company. Yeah.
It must be more than, so like at first it goes on a plane and then.
Yeah, it is a very normal document we apply actually in the trade transaction. If there is many modes of shipment from the point of the point of departure of the goods until the point of destination, we have the multimodal document. Yes.
And there is a different one. The different document.
It is a different. Yes, it is a different document. Yes, it is a different document because it includes more than one mode of shipment. Also, that the required documents depend on the custom and governmental partners requirements in both exporting and importing countries, as we told. The importers the requirements to assure receiving the ordered goods according to the required specification and the quantities. This is very important something for the importer. If you need as importer to assure receiving what you ordered from the supplier, please ask for the inspection certificate. The inspection certificate can give you, because it is issued by a third party, can give you exactly, I told you exactly as importer, if the ordered goods that you order is complied for what you asked for, as a quantity, as a specifications, and anything you need. Because there's, as you know, something like rice. For example, the rice have specifications. If the rice analysis is failed, then I can't pay it in my market. So I need inspection certificate to confirm that the goods I ordered is compliant to what I need exactly. Also, the international trade agreements that both countries apply, and or the trade agreements held between both countries will let me order a specific document. For example, if the goods imported from the European Union, then I have to ask for the Euro 1 certificate, because it will be imported by the custom department to specify the custom fees I have to pay at the port of discharge. Now, terms of shipment. I have to insert the contract of sale, the terms of shipment. What the terms of shipment related to? It related to the shipping details of this required goods from exporting country to the importing country. It includes the method of shipment. In the contract of sale, we have to insert what's the method of shipment. We have to the goods will be shipped by the vessel, by multimodal, vessel and truck and plane, or only the plane, only the truck, and so on. Latest date of shipment. For me, the buyer, I can't open it for the exporter. I have to tell him that I need the goods shipped from your place to my destination not later than this date, because I have maybe tenders with government, I have an important agreements with the clients to provide them this goods, so I can't open it for him. I have to insert the lot of date shipment. Partial shipment, allowed or not allowed, we must agree in this terms. Are you as exporter allowed to give me the exporting goods in one shop, or you can ship these goods on different stages? Partial shipment must be inserted in the contract term. If we agree that I need the goods in one time, for example, 1,000 units of this good, then he must ship the 1,000 units by the same shipment. But if there is no need to have it one time, we can make it on stages. The transshipment, allowed or not, we must insert this condition. Are you as exporter, when you deal with the carrier, is the carrier allowed to change the mode of shipment, switch the vessel to another vessel, or the plane to another plane on the way from exporting country to the importing country? This is very important because some goods cannot be safe if there is a move of this good from mode to another mode, from vessel to vessel or plane to plane. But in some countries like China, we enforce to do that because China, the manufacturers there are, as you notice, a huge country, that they force to ship the goods to the main port in China through small vessels. Then the small vessel move the goods or loading the goods to the vessel that will come to Jordan. Maybe this vessel will not have a straight line to Jordan. It should go to Indonesia, for example. And this is, yes.
Normally shipping will not come because the Aqaba port is they call it a destination.
Yes.
So this is always a challenge.
Yeah, this is different from where the exporting comes. If like China, it should be, it must be there as a transshipment. From Europe, for example, Antwerp port, for example, or Munich port, it can come one straight to Aqaba. There is a line, for example, from Antwerp to Aqaba. There is no it is not a problem to have switched the vessel through the road. Okay, or it must not be a transshipped through this line because it considered a small distance compared to China and the Far East. Okay. We must insert the place of shipment, the port of loading, the airport of departure. We must insert the place of destination, the port of discharge, the airport of destination. We must insert that in the contract of sale. If I told him that you need to load the goods from Antwerp, then the exporter must load the goods from Antwerp. But if he, at this time, or when we sign the contract, he don't know from which port he can load or ship the goods, then we can make it open. Any European port, any US port. But for Jordan, we have, for example, Aqaba, we must insert that I have to receive the goods in Aqaba, to Jeddah, to Jabal Ali, wherever. Also, the packaging and packing conditions, how should the goods must be packed? This is very important. As you know, there are some goods have special packing. For example, the sesame, I can transport the sesame through cartoons, for example. I have to transport the sesame through specialized bags with specialized specifications to keep the oil in the sesame without any loss or without any damage. So the packing is very important. For example, the appliances I need, for example, the hard packaging. Cars, for example, there is no packaging for the cars. It should be load on the or on board of the vessel by some arrangement. So this is very important to know the packaging or packing for the goods. It must be, and many importers I know from my clients lose because they do not insert how they should pack their goods on the way from exporting country to importing country. We have other details like the shipping marks. Is the goods come in containers or in bulks, in pallets, on board, on deck of the vessel? This must be inserted on the in the sales of contract. Now we come to the major things to determine the cost of importing goods from country to country. The delivery terms, the input terms. As you know, as I told, there is the cost of the goods itself. We have the total value of the goods. But when I, as exporter, ship the goods from my country to the importer country, there is another charges on this way. We have the freight charges because one of us will sign with the shipping company. We have the insurance charges because the goods must be insured because we have long distance between two countries. We have the loading cost, we have the unloading cost, we have the transportation from the manufacturing in the exporting country to the place of departure or the point of loading in the exporting country. We have the inland transportation cost from Aqaba to my warehouse. We have the labor cost when they load or unload the goods on the vessel or from the vessel. Also, we have the exporting formalities in the exporting country. We have the custom fees in the importing country. All of them are additional charges to the goods value. So we must insert these charges exactly in the contract of sale. How can we do that? We have something called Incoterms. We have something called Incoterms, international commercial terms or delivery terms. Actually, the ICC, the International Chamber of Commerce, has established many brochures or guidelines or codes regarding this Incoterms starting in 1936 until the final one published last year in 2020. So in the trade transaction, export-import, there are many codes over the contracted price of the sold goods, including, as I told, freight charges, insurance, loading, unloading, land transportation in the country of seller, land transportation in the country of the buyer, export license, formalities, and customs duty payable at the country of buyer. These costs must be paid either by the buyer or the seller or both. How can we determine that? Through the Incoterm. Through this rule called Incoterm, international commercial terms. So to avoid misunderstanding and simplify communication between both parties regarding these codes or charges, as the party gives them, the International Chamber of Commerce in Paris has defined a set of standard combinations of commercial terms covering typical trading conditions called Incoterms. So the Incoterm, we have many rules, we will talk them now. And as Incoterm specify this cost, who will bear this cost, the exporter or importer. This cost, who will should pay this cost, the importer or exporter. The purpose and the scope of the Incoterms rules. The purpose of the Incoterms rule is to explain as three letters, trade terms, rules reflecting business-to-business practice and contracts for the sales goods. The Incoterm actually describe mainly the task, the cost and risks involved on the part of the sale contract. Because what's the task and cost? The task, who will bear the responsibility of signing the insurance contract? Who will bear the responsibility of signing the shipping contract, the shipment contract with the shipping company? Who will pay this cost? The risk, when the goods delivered from the exporter to the importer. This is very sensitive actually point. The point of moving the risk or deliver the goods from the exporter to the importer is very, very sensitive actually transaction, because after this point, the importer who will get the responsibility of the goods. After this point, the exporter who will be responsible for this point of goods, even if this point in the importing country or in the exporting country. So the risk, when the risk moved and delivering the goods from exporter to importer, it is very important to be specified. It is not delivered at the port of loading. It may be delivered the goods or the risk at the exporting country before the port of loading. May be delivered at the importing country after the port of loading. Okay? It should be stressed that the scope of Incoterms is limited to matters related to the rights and obligations of the parties of the contract of sale with respect to the delivery of the tangible goods sold. So the Incoterms is only restricted to both contract of sale parties, the buyer and the importer, their rights, their obligations, and all of this is mentioned under the brochure or the brochure published by the ICC. And as you know, we talk about the tangible goods, not the intangible goods. The intangible goods, there is no additional cost like the software or the licenses. There is intangible goods, and there is no additional cost. To sell this good intangibly from the exporter to the buyer. How to put the Incoterm in the contract of sale? Make it clear when you insert it in the contract of sale. I have to insert the Incoterm and the name, the place or port, and I have to insert the Incoterm publication number. I will follow up because the previous Incoterms are still valid. The 2010 valid, the 2000 is valid. So I have to insert which Incoterm I am follow up in my contract of sale regarding this Incoterm. Because in the Incoterm 2020 we have 11 rules, and for example 2000 we have 14 rules. And each rule have different describe, and each rule describe the obligation and rights of each party, the importer or the exporter. So it is important to insert the Incoterm and the year of the publication published by the International Chamber of Commerce. And I have to insert the named place. There is Incoterm, I have to insert the place of port of loading or airport of departure. And another rules, I have to insert the place of shipment or the airport of discharge or port of discharge or airport of destination. So it should be clear why I have to insert the named place with the Incoterm, because I need to know the point, the risk of this delivery of this goods when it is delivered from the exporter to the importer. This is very important to know from both parties by inserting the correct Incoterm along with the correct named place. So how can I choose as importer and exporter the Incoterm? This depends. If I have durable goods, I have to use Incoterms. If I have non-durable goods, I have to use another Incoterms. This is very important. The mean of transportation, there is some Incoterms, it can come with each type of method of shipment, but there is another Incoterm, it is restricted to the sea shipment or the waterway shipment. The parties' agreement on the additional cost obligations. Who will bear the insurance? Who will bear this, the loading, the unloading, the transportation, the inland transportation? This also will determine which Incoterm I have to insert in the contract of sale. As I told you, please specify, even importer or exporter, in your contract of sale, the place that should be along with the Incoterm as precisely as you can, because in this point, the risk moved from the exporter to the importer. Before this point, the exporter has the responsibility of the goods. For example, if there is a damage before this point, then the exporter will bear the cost. If the damage happened after this point, then the importer will bear the cost and bear the rest of the under the transportation ship or shipment. The Incoterms, according to the Incoterms in 2020, we have 11 codes or 11 rules. Some of them can be comes with any mode of transport, and some of them should be restricted to the waterway transport or the sea shipment. For the transport documents come with all modes of shipment. We have the EXW, the export. It means that the exporter delivers the goods at his places, at the door of his place, at the door of his manufacturing. We have the FCA, free carrier. He will deliver the goods before port of loading. At a specific point before the port of loading. We have CBT, carriage bed 2. In CBT, the exporter will pay the freight charges, while the importer will pay the insurance cost. We have the CIP, carriage and insurance bed 2. The exporter will pay both the freight charges and the insurance charges. We have the delivered at place, DBU delivered at place unloaded, DDP delivered to duty paid. For the D group, the exporter do everything and deliver the goods to the importer warehouse. And he make everything and pay every cost except insurance. If they agree, can the importer pay them, but he will deliver the goods at the warehouse of the importer, at the door of the warehouse of the importer. While for the XW, the importer must go to the door of the exporter as his plan. Yes, please.
Yes. Now sometimes we are using CFR full liner term. Can you please explain on this?
Okay, CFR, then the free
out or 3 out and full liner term.
yes, free out for liner terms that the exporter will pay the freight charges and the loading the goods from the port ground to the vessel. He will pay. It will pay by the exporter, and the shipping cost from the place of loading to the place of destination will be paid by exporter, and he will also pay the unloading for the goods from the vessel to the ground of the port of destination.
With all costs.
All costs until the importer receives the goods on the ground in Aqaba, not on the vessel.
Second question is that most of the companies, they are not using the contract, they are using purchase order.
It is the same.
It is the same, right?
As I told you before, why? In another slide, we can make it a full contract of sale, or we can make it pro forma invoice or purchase order. But please insert all details on this, even it is short sales of contract or full sales of contract.
But the formal invoice is considered as a contract?
Yes, it is a sale contract. It is a small sales contract, but it should contain all details. You should insert all details you need, especially the 6 point we inserted now. Yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Someone from Housing Bank. Sir, I have 2 questions. First one, does we have another way to export and import goods without LC?
Yes, this one I will talk with them after a while. Yes.
Okay.
We have 4 methods.
Okay. Another question. We see many traders doesn't have this information. What is the rule for the bank with this client?
There is no rule for the bank. As I told you, the sales of contract is restricted between both parties only, the exporter and the importer. It should be established by them only. It should not relate it to the bank unless there is LCs or documentary collection. We will see it now. But they can pay through open account or through advance payment. So the bank is not responsible for the contract of sale.
My question is, what is the rule for the bank to show all information for the customer? I'm speaking about the SMEs, small.
Yes, again, I told you, the bank should not involve in the contractual agreement between sellers and buyers. Please, this is a risky point. The banks,
how we can support the client?
by consultation only, by consultation. You can give them consultation. Take this method of payment. Please be patient. I will explain those now. Take this method of payment or take this method of payment. But for the agreement between exporter and importer, you should not involve as a bank. Please. You can give advice. You can give consultation only. And he, the importer, if he need to involve in this transaction, or the exporter, if he need to involve in this transaction, he must be aware how he can build the contract of sale. He must be aware of the counterpart.
That's where the lawyers come into the game.
Yes.
So you have to know, there's a lot of risk because, as Khaldoun said, sometimes you don't bet your partner, sometimes you don't have the correct answer there. We can tell you many cases as chambers where if you just ask a lawyer, you would not be in jeopardy and high risk because of all the details that you see here. If you pick the wrong input term, you will be in trouble. If you pick the wrong HS code in your bill of lading, you will be in trouble because you maybe don't know what are the proper documents that go with this HS code. If you purchase, for example, hand soap, you don't need any certificate. Hand soap with cleaning, with the killing disinfection, you need to register and you have to have a license. And it has a different HS code. So please, I know it's hard. We're very privileged to have Mr. Khaldoun with us. But this is not from nothing. I can tell you many cases that could have easily been avoided had you paid attention. And we have with us, for example, Dr. Khaldoun is an expert. We have also our colleagues from the embassy here. So please, let's build awareness, let's create the proper understanding, and work together to make sure you have the best success. Sorry, you had a question.
Another question.
Yes.
Yes, actually, we're facing a problem when we're facing a dispute with the supplier. Sometimes we don't mention which court we should refer to.
Which one?
Which court? Is it Jordanian court or Chamber?
Yes, this is excellent question. Our colleague Khaldoun will answer you.
But your colleague behind, sorry,
معلش مستر خلدون انا بدي اسالك سؤال بالعربي عشان تفهم شو المقصود.
تفضل.
شو دور البنك للتوضيح للعملاء للزبون الجديد او للزبون التكنيك؟ دور البنك لتوضيح هاي المعلومات مش اللي يدخل فيها المصدر والمستورد. شو دور البنك حتى يتم نشر ثقافه استخدام الNC واستخدام البنوك لانها هي اكبر الطرق امانه. هذا المقصود. هل بيتم عمل دورات للعملاء؟ هل في توجه لدى البنوك بالتدخل في هذا الموضوع؟ لأن كثير من العملاء الSME عفوا يكون هو صاحب الشركه وهو المدير المالي، بحكي عن سوق الوجه، وهو المدير المالي وما عنده الثقافه البنكيه، ممكن يكون مثلا مهندس، ممكن يكون كذا.
والله فاهم سؤالك، انا فاهم سؤالك منيح بالعربي، معلش تجاوب. اكسكيوز مي. انا بحكي لك حكينا بالاول من مخاطر التجاره انه الطرفين ما بيعرفوا بعض. اكبر خطر انك انت تدخل في عمليه تجاريه وانت ما عندك فول اويرنس اللي بدك تشتغل فيه وما عندك فول اويرنس الطرف الثاني. ركز معي لو سمحت. الاصل في العمليه التجاريه انه الطرفين يعرفوا بعض منيح. ما بصير تدخل عمليه تجاريه مع شخص انت مش عارف عنه شيء. حكينا بتقدر تاخذ معلومات، اما يسافر لك تروح على الممثل التجاري تسال الى اخر الحكي. هي الخطوه الاولى. ثاني خطوه لازم انت كمستورد، انت بتحكي عن المستوردين عن الSMEs، لازم يكون بده يعرف ايش بده يستورد وكيف بده يستورد. البنك مش دوره، انا دوري اعطي كونسلتيشن تقرا، بس الاعتمادات مش الاكثر امانه عشان تكون عارف. احنا عندنا 4 طرق هلا رح نحكي عنهم، انت استعجلت شوي. ممكن يستخدم اي طريقه من طرق الدفع في التجاره الدوليه، تمام؟ وراح احكي لك كل طريقه شو مخاطرها وكيف نقدر نخفف على عملائنا، نخفف بس ما في زيرو ريسك، نخفف على عملائنا استخدام هاي الطرق، تمام؟ انا بقدر انصح عميل يجي عندي حيا الله، انا بعطيه الاستشاره. احنا في الاسكان انت عارف بيجي عندنا العميل نعطيه كل الاستشارات، بس ما بصير اتدخل في عقد البيع. هاي كثير مهمه. بعطيه استشاره بس عقد البيع لازم هو يكون اوير، بما انه بده يستورد او يصدر بده يكون عنده الكونسبت شو لازم يكون عنده في عقد البيع حتى ينجح العمليه التجاريه. وهي عندنا مشكله فيها مع عملاء. انت بتعرف بدخل الواحد عمليه تجاريه وعنده كثير مسك في المعلومات. اذا انت اعطيته معلومه ودخلت فيه غلط بدخلك بكره في قضيه في عقد البيع بورطك فيها. هلا بالاعتمادات عندنا ارتكل واضحه، ممنوع البنوك تربط الاعتماد بعقد البيع باي شكل من الاشكال نهائيا، ممنوع. بتشير له بس ما بتربط حالك فيه. راح احكي لك هسه بطرق البيع، راح اجاوبك على سؤالك كيف كل طريقه مين اللي راح يضر، مين اللي فيه عليه ريسك اكبر، وكيف انا ممكن اخفف عليه هذا الريسك. فراح اجاوبك على سؤالك، اوكي؟ طب بالنسبه للقانون سؤالك ممتاز، بس اخوان راح يجاوبوك عليه.
يعني صحيح من وجه مشاكل.
نعم انا معك،
لانه
انا معك.
كثير مشاكل بيننا وبينهم
100%
لو يشد يعني حر
بعقد البيع. يس انا معك، انا عارف انه عندنا مشكله. لازم تذكرها بعقد البيع. انا هسه راح احكيها، لازم تذكرها بعقد البيع. الليجل القانون اللي بدك تحكم عليه والمحاكم اللي بدك انت تترافع فيها لازم تذكره بشكل واضح في عقد البيع مهما كان التاجر باي بلد لاي بلد. هلا الميثود اوف بيمنت بتحميك، لانه انت رح ترجع اذا اخذت اعتماد الكفاله للرولز اللي طالع عن الICC، الانكوتير صادر عن الICC، هاي بتحميك. بس عقد البيع لانه علاقه ما بينك، يعني في النهايه عقد ما بين الشخص، ما بين طرف وطرف، مستورد ومصدر، لازم يحكم على قانون.
يعني to mitigate the risk, the LC doesn't cover the risk total.
For the contract sale, yes, but for the payment you are covered through the ICC.
Inspection company could mitigate the risk. but not much.
The inspection certificate or the inspection company for the importer will make your risk zero, believe or not. So please, if you are important, ask for the inspection
If
certificate.
the inspection company has a good reputation.
Yes, because they are third-party companies. I will talk them now. They are they are independent third-party companies and actually respectable companies, and they exist in each port of loading in each port, like SGS, for example. If you are importer, you have to ask for the inspection certificate.
And sometimes we ask for inspection certificate.
You have always to.
We receive the product not according to our specification.
Why? Do you know why?
And the reason is that the inspection company will say, we are testing the goods at the time of inspection.
No, if you insert what you need exactly, if you insert what you need exactly, the quantity, this is very important item.
Not an issue, yeah.
The specification of each item, the analysis percentage, if the goods is food, for example, you must insert exactly what you need. I know that they inspect at the time of inspection, but actually this is the goods you will receive, because they can, as an inspection company, be sure that the goods loading on the container and the container is closed in front of them, and they can stamp the container. You know that, and they can insert that we evidence that your goods is loading on the container serial number blah blah blah. So this the inspection the inspection goods is the goods you will receive. So if they evidence you that it is with the quantity for figure some whatever, and the specification, they insert the specification, then this is what you will receive. So insert what you need, insert exactly what you need, please. Yes.
Excuse me, sir. I have to stand up.
Yeah.
My name is Mohammed Karajeh. I work for FAS, not that one, Foreign Agricultural Service of USDA. What the gentleman has said is very practical and accurate. You may get a certificate from third party,
Yes.
especially with food. And when you
Yes.
receive it here in Jordan, there may be kind of discrepancy, and based on that, it could be rejected.
Yes.
Although you have a third party like SGS, for example.
If it is under an LLC.
Yeah.
Yes. If there is no specific, if you have issue LLC and you get the document, because the banks deal with documents, if there is discrepancy in your any document, including the inspection certificate, you can reject the documents immediately. Don't accept them.
Yeah, true. But when you receive actually the consignment, you will find it different.
No,
because
it should not be. No, it should not be.
Yeah.
If you insert all details, you will receive what you required for. Okay. So we have the Incoterms. We have 7 Incoterms. Go with each kind of method of term method. We have XW, XCF, the carriers, TBT carriage pay 2. Each of them, as I told, explain which party will pay the freight charges, the insurance charges, the loading and unloading charges, and land transportation charges, and exporting country, importing country, and so on. We have the DBU, DDB. We have the 4 rules that just comes with the sea transportation: free and alongside check fast. We have free on board, CFR cost and freight, and CIF cost, insurance and freight. I cannot give details of them. There is no time, but you need to know that all of each one of them will determine which party will pay the freight charges, the insurance charges mainly, and where is the point of delivering the goods from the exporter to the buyer. This is a very important point. Shall I receive it at the exporting country and I complete the shipment as importer, or I receive it at my country and he will deliver to me at my places? This is very important to determine through these Incoterms. Now we will talk about the 4 methods in international trade. We have an international trade just 4 methods for payment from buyers to exporters. Just 4 methods in international trade. It must be included. This is the major part in the contract of sale must be mentioned. How can the importer will pay the goods value to the exporter? He has one of 4 methods only. And how can exporters, because we talk about the exporters, reducing export risk using them as a method of payments? Both parties, seller and buyer, must agree on method of payment of service contract value, goods value, plus the other charges cost, if any. In other words, how will payment be effected from buyer to seller? And this will depend on the relationship between the 2 parties. How can I agree with the exporter or with the importer on the method of payment? The relations between both parties is a high element or a good element to determine that. The legal requirements and legislation, because there are some countries will not accept importing unless it is through LCs or BCs, like Algeria now. They do not accept importing through open account or advance payment. The financing needs and cash flow of the buyer. This is when it is a major element to determine which payment both parties must agree on. The 4 methods in international trade for payment, we have the advance payment, the open account, the documentary collection, and the documentary credit. Okay. Recently, the open account trading, it has the major share in the world for payment from importers to buyers. It constitutes over than 80% now of the international trade. It comes through open account trading, not LCs, not BCs, not advance payment. It is through open account. We'll explain what the open account means. 11% to the LCs, 5% to the documentary collection or bills for collection. So over 80% are for open account. Currently, the international trade is financed or paid through open account trading. And the advance payment, the buyer, what the advance payment means? It means that the buyer will pay in advance the amount of the contracted goods, and then the shipper will manufacture the goods and then ship the goods to the importer. So the exporter must have their money in advance to even manufacture the goods and load the goods on the vessel and ship it to the importing countries. When it is used, the buyer is not known to the seller. If I am as a seller or exporter, I don't know the honesty of my counterparty, the buyer, I must ask him to pay me in advance. Pay me, I will ship you. Without cash, I will not ship any goods for you. For one-time small deals, if there is small deals, maybe we can use the advance payment. If there is an open account between the 2 parties and the buyer exceeds his limit fixed by the supplier then said, okay, wait a minute, you exceed your limit under the open account trading, please pay me in cash this deal. When there are expected restrictions or regulations imposed by the importing countries, country risk, if there is a country risk, if I am as exporter afraid from, for example, to ship goods, for example, to Iraq or to Middle East in general, then I will ask my cash and my payment in advance, because there is, in my opinion, as exporter, there is a country risk if I ship the goods without having my money. So the country risk is a high element to determine this method. But what the risks on both parties? In both parties. None for the seller, for sure, and for risk on the part of buyers. Why? Because the seller will have their money in advance, so there is no risk on the seller, but actually the buyer pay for something not received yet or maybe not manufactured yet, so it considered a full risk or a high risk on the part of buyer. This is the advance payment. The second one, it is the major, as I told you, they have the higher percentage in international trade, currently over 80%, the open account trading. What the open account means? It means that the exporter or the buyer ship the goods, and the importer received and released the goods, and the importer sold the goods to his customer, and then he will pay to the exporter or to the buyer. So the buyer, the exporter, ship the goods, and the importer take the goods and put it in his warehouse and sold it to his customer, and then he will pay after a tenure of time or after a while 60 days, 90 days, from a specific date, he will pay the amount of these goods to the buyer. Okay? But when we can use, or why it is the major actually type of method of payment now currently in international trade. Currently, actually, there is a long and successful relations between the buyers and exporters, buyers and exporters in general. So, major of them are considered the exclusive distributor for those exporters in their countries. So, because there is a long experience or relation between them, so why not as a seller to give this facility or supplier financing, we call it, to the buyer and fix a limit to him. Under this limit, he can import goods through the year. Okay, so I can give him this limit to import the goods over a year under this limit. So it is used when there is a long and successful trading relationship between seller and buyer, and mainly when the buyer appointed by the seller as the exclusive distributor or agent in the importing country or in the regional area where the importing country is belonging to. There are financing needs by the buyer. As you know, majority of the buyers need financing. If they cannot take financing from their banks, they switch to the supplier. Please, supplier, give me some financing. How can I do that? By give him the open account trading. I will fix credit line to you under which you can import goods through this year, under which you can take your goods and then you can pay me after a specific tenor. We will agree under the sales contract. So there are financing needs by the buyer and the supplier agrees to grant such financing to him by trading through this method. In what cases the seller fixed a credit limit to the buyer under which the buyer can order goods under this method up to the limit amount. Such suppliers financing, as you know, register as account receivable in the seller's balance sheet and as account payable in the buyer's balance sheet. So what the risk if we use this method of payment? For sure, none for the buyers because they receive their goods and sold these goods to their local market, but actually it is a full risk for the buyer because he will ship the goods and after a specific date or a tenor he will receive his money. Why such method becomes the preferable by both parties and consequently becomes the most method used for payment in international trade? Why it is coming the highest usage now in the international trade? For buyers, it considers the kind of financing as we informed provided by supplier to importer. Then the buyer will have payment after receiving the goods. For me as a buyer, I can release the goods and sold it to in the local market and get money and pay the buyer from this proceed. So I am not forced to have my own cash to pay this amount. I can pay from what I sell to my customers in the local markets. For sure, this will improve the buyer's cash flow. So as a buyer, I am really need this trading method, the open account. It is a cheaper method, as you know, rather than the LCs and the bills for collection, because LCs and bills for collection, there is many types of charges fixed by the banks when both parties use them. Avoiding the long process using the letters of credit. As you know, the letters of credit is if the buyer need or the supplier requested an LC, then the buyer will need to have a non-funded limit from his bank because the LC is considered, for example, or the LC is considered a non-financial facility. So I have to give my balance sheet, and the bank must study my balance sheet and give me the limit, and he may request it for collateral, cash collateral, or non-cash collateral, and this actually will cost much for the buyer. So the buyer prefers the open account rather than other methods because he will not be forced to have facilities from a bank and pay cost for securing collateral for his bank. But why the sellers, despite the seller have the full risk in this transaction, why they now prefer this method of payment as a seller, despite he will get money after he shipped the goods? Actually, it is a way by the seller to increase sales. If I am seller, as a seller, I need to enter new markets, increase my market share in the current markets. So I call my customers, the importers, please, I can give you facility by granting you credit limits, but please take goods from me, especially if there is another competitors in the same area. Once I got more buyers, then this means that I increase my sales to this market or to this region. It is a way of having extra revenues. Majority of the sellers, when they granted limits under the open account trading, they fixed extra interest rates on the sold goods against these facilities or these credit limits. So it is a kind of increasing revenue for the seller. So the seller prefer this transaction. Yeah. So it is a way of having extra revenues. How can I will talk this later? Okay, for the LCs now, for the documentary collection, it is the third method under the international trade. Best for collection means to handle the shipping documents by the seller, by banks on behalf of sellers. So the banks will take now rules on behalf of sellers to handle the shipping documents and provide them or represent them to the importers. So in this case, the banks will play the major role in this transaction, and they must follow the seller's instructions. Comes with these documents will deliver to the remitting bank. It is the seller bank. And after that, the remitting bank will ship or dispatch these documents along with the supplier instruction to the not to the importer directly, to his bank, which called the collecting bank. So there is banks in the middle between exporters and buyers, play the role of collecting the money from the buyer on behalf of the seller by documentary credits. So it is a good way to go with for both parties, especially the seller, because now there is a bank to play the role of collecting my money or collecting the acceptance from the buyer if my instruction to deliver the documents to the buyer against acceptance. So the banks will act according to the seller instructions and collecting the money or acceptance from the buyer to the seller. LCs. The documentary credits, actually, the concept of documentary credit, it is a great innovation in the banking concept. Actually, started in 1926 by the US National Committee, who will called for a conference between the ICC members to make conference to take this concept, which called the letter of credit or documentary credit, as a main method to pay the money from the buyers to the sellers. So the LCs, it is returned back to the beginning of the 20th century, and actually in this method, the banks will take the whole rule now and guarantee paying the goods value on behalf of the buyers to the sellers. I.e., the sellers will not depend anymore on buyers to collect his money, because there is LC from issuing bank, then the seller will assure his to get his money against the shipped goods from a bank directly, not from a buyer. Yes.
Because there's a lot of question about the LC. As I know from you, you said that LC is no longer the ideal use, but this is the correct use. Can you explain for us more?
Yes. Actually, the LCs now, it is used heavily in the international trade because in this rule there is a bank will undertake payment for, in front of the seller on behalf of the buyer. Now the seller will not depend on the buyer to collect his money. The seller, before shipping the goods, he will receive an LC issued by an issuing bank, letter of credit. This LC actually must have all details reflecting from the contract of sale, all the details. It is issued by a bank in favor of the beneficiary, called the seller or the beneficiary under the LC. By receiving this LC from a bank, the seller can be comfortable to manufacture the goods and ship the goods to the importer, and he he is forced to guarantee his money to present the compliant commercial documents according to this LC and to this LC. I.e., the banks and the LC don't deal with the goods. The seller is required to present the commercial or the shipping documents required under the LC and should be compliant to the terms of this LC. The seller under the LC is the king under this transaction as much or as soon as he presents the compliant documents required under the LC. If he failed to present the compliant documents or there is a discrepancies under the documents, then the issuing bank will be released from paying such amount. So the LC is a guarantee as soon as the seller presents the compliant documents. Yes, sir.
Another benefit for the exporter is that he can do back-to-back LC.
Yes, and he can discount the LC because he needs raw materials, right?
Yeah.
He can discount the LC from the advising bank and he get money and open LC to import his raw material. So it is a kind of a financing for the exporter actually also. Yes, ma'am.
اوكي سو يعطيك العافيه بدك مي كمان نقدر نعطيك. Okay, so your presentation has been fantastic, and I'm so glad that you mentioned legal advice for the contracts of sales and purchase orders, because we at AmCham, we very frequently have these kind of inquiries, and there are some kind of problems that arise from Jordanian exporters not going into the fine print.
Yes.
And okay, the folks from the embassy, you didn't hear this, but the Americans are like great in, fine printing some of the details that if we do not have somebody on the other side, it would be very difficult and it would be not to the advantage of the Jordanian exporters, and vice versa, of course. The third-party inspection is also something that during Corona was a huge deal.
Yes.
There was one incident where instead of having SGS do an inspection for $3,000, the Jordanian importer received barrels filled with water.
Yes.
And lost around $170,000. These are real live examples of cases that we are facing and we get involved in every now and then. Now, the due diligence is very, very important, and I think our friends from the American Embassy can help, law firms can help, partners in the US can help, and we as AmCham can also help you if you need to vet any of the companies or any of the partners you wish to engage with in the US, because there have been lots of cases whereby you go on a website and there's an address and this address is non-existent.
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
With
sound is not clear. Can you give me a mic?
Sorry.
من وين أبلش؟
No.
من أول. Okay, so I was just talking about real-time cases that we have had and inquiries we have received at AmCham. The third-party inspection is very, very important, and I gave an example of. I'm sorry, is the microphone working? Okay. I gave an example about Jordanian importer of raw materials from the Far East, when there was a problem. China, they had to go and find other new sources. Instead of paying a third party like SGS for $3,000, they actually lost $170,000 because what they received was basically barrels filled with water. Although they had received a proper sample before. These things are very, very important. The due diligence of new partners is also very, very important. The folks at the embassy can help. We as AmCham can help. Law firms can help. So this is very, very important. The fine print on purchase orders and the sales contracts is something that nobody should neglect. Because, okay, so I'm going to say this again. Companies in the US are familiar with this, and they never do contracts without legal advice. most of us will just skip through the contract here and not really pay attention until there is something that is raising a red flag, and then your partner in the US will say, but it's in the contract. What are you going to do then? This is where it will be important, and I second you on this. Please seek legal advice before you go into new contracts. Now, I have another question for you. It's during COVID, the American buyers, especially for bigger consignments, were asking for payments by escrow accounts, and they were reluctant to use LC. I know it's also because of the due diligence and the mistrust, because all the world is changing sourcing options. They might be dealing with new markets, and this is another layer that is even safer than the LC. Can you please shed light on that?
Yes, thank you. Actually,
I talk too much.
we don't deal with that for account, but this is a matter of guarantee. They ask for a guarantee for payment. They ask for guarantee for payment if the buyer cannot issue the LC. But they can go through the open account, and I will discuss now, by asking for the standby LC. What the standby LC? It is a kind of guarantee. Secure the payment of the shipped goods to the seller in case the buyer has default in paying the invoice in the due date. So the escrow account for us, for the Jordanian banks, not working but the supplier, he has open account with the buyer. Please, if you have open account with the buyer, do not ship unless you have guarantee, standby receipt. And USA, yes.
So the credits is kind of linked to having the guarantee.
Yes. It is coming from their bank in USA actually. Because under the standby LC, I can issue the standby LC to a US bank and ask to my correspondent and ask them to confirm this stamp or guarantee or standby LC in favor of buyer. Once they have this guarantee, he can ship and sleep. Because if the buyer fails to pay the invoice in the due date as per the agreement, then the bank they can claim its amount and the bank is forced to pay them there in USA.
Exactly.
It is a kind of guarantee.
Okay, so another question. Because of the vetting, I mean, what goes for the gander goes for the goose. زي ما هم ما عندهم ثقة وما بيعرفوا.
Yes.
والطرف الثاني نفس الشيء. Okay, so I know in banks there is something called Know Your Client. Is there anything that you as a bank can supply to their bank to vet the exporting committee company or the importing committee in case they are importing raw materials?
You mean investigation?
Yes.
Now we can ask our correspondent, for example in USA, please can you give us some information regarding this exporter? In most cases, they give us the info. We don't seek for financial position, for example, but we seek for some information. Is this company exist really? Is this company work in this field really? They can answer us. And this is what I mentioned earlier. The buyer can go to the US embassy if they welcome him and can give some information regarding the American supplier as well. And I can search for example, the Chamber of Commerce, for example, in California. I can check through the internet. I have many sources, but my bank can help me. Yes, I have many correspondent banks, and I have an excellent relation with them, so they can answer me as well because they send us information regarding some buyers and we answer them. So it is a kind, yes. Yeah, I finished. Only I want to complete. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Just a note here that it is very important that the careful verification of the supplier or the buyer is very important.
Yes, yes.
And there are international grading for the companies who are doing business with,
Yes. This is what I started my session actually.
Yeah.
You have to know your counterparty. Do not make deal with any party.
Correct.
This is the major point to have your success in trade relationship.
You lower the risk.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I want to complete it. We use the letter of credit. It is for the supplier. As long as he presents the required compliant documents, he will get his money for sure. And if he need more secure, he can ask for confirmation for this LC from his bank in USA. Okay, once he have confirmation, then he will get money in USA. He not need to wait until the documents received by the Jordanian issuing bank.
This is the second question, is that what mechanism that you can give us to verify about the company? How can we talk to the bank and asking about the supplier?
Your bank should help you as a consultant.
The local bank?
Yes, the local bank. Give him the name and the address you have, or the contact details, or the counterpart. You will make deal with him, and he will contact his correspondent in his country to get such information. You can go to the commercial representative of his embassy. You can ask, go to the Chamber of Commerce, because, for example, the Jordan Chamber of Commerce is
affiliated to the USG.
Yeah, it is one of the member of the ICC, and there is we have the ICC Jordan. They can help you in this regard. The LC, if the seller ask for the LC as a payment of method, he must present compliant documents. Please do not present discrepant document at all. If the LC does not work with you and cannot and you cannot make the documents comply with this LC, ask for amendment. Do not check even. Do not check unless you be sure 100% you will present compliant documents. But for the open account, if the seller gives the buyer this facility, please ask for the standby LC or the payment guarantee to secure your payment if the buyer fail to buy this invoice at due date.
Because there's a risk involved.
Yes.
There's a high risk involved.
And the major huge company now all over the world, because they deal with their exclusive distributor in the other regions, they give them open account against a standby LC. They put it in their pocket. If the buyer pay the invoices through the wire transfer, everything is okay. But if he failed to pay an invoice, he can easily claim this invoice amount from his bank actually in his country. Okay. Just I want to 3 minutes about the rule of housing bank to encourage the international actually trade, even locally or internationally. Actually, we grant many kinds of facilities now to our clients for the non-funded facilities, the LCs, the LGs, the standby LCs. We can issue, we have around 600 banks, correspondent banks all over the world. They can take my risk as well. I can take their risk. We have fixed limit between others. So this facilitates the international trade if the housing bank is participated in this transaction. So if I require confirmation for my LC from any bank in the world, from any country in the world, I can find correspondent there, and they can confirm the LC favoring the supplier, as well as if there is importer send, issuing bank send LC to our exporter, I can confirm the LCs for them, because if I receive the LC from one of my correspondents, I can issue the standby LCs. I can deal with the counter guarantees. For example, I can issue a counter guarantee to a bank against which he can issue a guarantee to his client as well, and vice versa. So also we are facilitating the international trade between countries. For example, the Iraqi LCs now, because the Iraqi bank cannot issue their LCs outside, we take the rule to reissue their LCs worldwide. So I actually facilitate the international transaction between foreign countries as well. This is hoping that the session was clear for you. And if there's any question, we have 10 minutes maybe, or 5 minutes. I am ready to answer you. عفيف.
ما في شو اسمه
Yeah, أنا سامع. Go ahead.
Sir, I need to ask you, I see your opinion about the blockchain with the trade finance. This method, I think, with
right before the question, the blockchain and the supply chain. Currently now, it's getting improved worldwide. It is a kind of open account, because I said we have 4 methods of payment. Open account advance payment letter of credit bills for collection. The blockchain supply chain, it is a kind of open account in which you as a corporate, not me as a trade, you finance the receivables or the invoices or the contract of sale itself before even the shipment done. So it is now, it is a kind of facility. You can provide your client before they even ship the goods. Okay? For me, it is a direct financing. It is like the loan. Okay, the term loan you grant to your client. So if you are interested as a corporate, go ahead because you have a contract of sale you can finance. Okay, but majority of the banks now in the world they heavily concentrate on this concept.
Any other questions, please?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
You mentioned before dealing with any clients, you have to know the client and the background and what is this and so forth. And you mentioned the ways that you can the legalities of the company and its existence or not.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes once we want, let's say, if I want to go in an expansion and I want to go to a new markets, new territories,
yes,
I might know some basics information from the sources that you mentioned about the company, if it's existed or not.
yes.
But for me, in order to do a commercial terms, I need to get more information. For example, like if I want to get to know about a credit bureau of a particular client, then I need to know his stability, his financial stability, and how he's dealing and so forth. What kind of an entities that can help me out to do this? Is it a legal terms? Is it a governmental?
The Chamber of Commerce can help you. The Chamber of Industry in your country and in this country can help you. The commercial representative in his embassy can help you. For me,
sorry, they will not give an information. For example, the credit bureau status of this particular client and how he performed in a particular period.
Yes, you can ask if he interested. If he interested to deal with you, you can ask for a letter issued by his bank backing his financial honesty or financial position. I.e., this client is financially eligible to enter in trade transaction. You can, if he interested, he can give you this information. But for me, if I will, for me as a Khaldoun, if I will have company, I will enter a new market, actually I will travel there to check there on his existence really in this market. Because if you, as I told you, if you get confidence of this counterparty, you can go ahead and make deal with him. And you can ask for his another counterparties, and ask him with who you are deal with, for example, in Jordan, in the area, in the Middle East. He can give you companies, right? From his CV, let us say. You can ask them as well.
Or your lawyer in the state or your legal representative.
Yes.
Yeah.
My question is there any institute, I don't know if it's legal institutes or any other like consultants who can do the inspection in details on a particular client and get me like a free.
Yeah, there is no specific institution. You can ask for help, as Ragad said, from the lawyer office there, through a lawyer office like Hamouri, they had partner, for example, in California. You ask him, you ask them, please, can you contact your partners in California to give me some information regarding this company? But there is no any independent institution can give you this answer.
Well, honestly, there is. Internationally speaking, there is, but one thing you need to know that private companies normally do not disclose their information to their companies. That's only has been and it will continue to be a barrier to get information, especially from private.
Yes, but for example, in Jordan, there's the company's control department. If you insert their name, you can get all the registration certificate for them, the shareholder, the percentage, when the company established, the in what goods they are specialized, right? Easily, I can insert any
Their
company now, and I
everything. Their financial reports,
yes,
everything.
their balance sheet. If it is publicly listed company,
It is, but this is not, it's publicly listed, there is no issue.
even the huge company, they listed their balance sheet on their website actually. Yani there's many big companies, they listed their balance sheet on their website. You can check the balance sheet.
The answer is your legal representative in the other country.
As well as the auditors, we have the four big, the like PwC or KPMG. You can ask them if you deal with them. Please ask this company with who's the auditor of the company. They can help you actually. Yes.
Any other question? I think I want this session again. It's been amazing, but very, very grateful.
Thank you very much.
And I know everybody has more questions, but I want to definitely invite you to give the session again. I think our other members would also.
Thank you very much. Actually, in the house in Bern, any client or many clients can attend us. I have many people call me every day and ask for consultation. We get consultation for free. And we can guide you. Yes, we can guide you. We can guide you because this is one of our concepts in house in Bern. We can guide you which product you can go ahead, which payment you can go through. I can take a look of your contract of sale, but it is not my responsibility, but I can guide you if there is missing in the contract of sale from technical wise, actually, not legal wise. So in House of Bank, we have many non-clients come to us and ask for consultation. And we help them and guide them, and our consultation help them always in the right way, alhamdulillah. And even if you are our client and have you have inward LC, export LC, and you can present me, we can give you the service of pre-checking the document before even you stamp it from the Chamber of Commerce or from issue the transport document. We can told you which discrepancy you have in your documents and you can omit them when you issue the original document.
It's good advice to bring in customers.
Yeah.
We do the same at AmCham. We do
Yes.
it for members and non-members.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Thank you very much.
I just want to impose on you 2 minutes. We have with us, we're very honored to have with us Mr. Muhammad Al-Hissa from the Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and stationed here in Amman. He wants to talk to you a bit before the coffee sandwich break about what he can do to support your efforts to import and trade with the U.S. Mr. Muhammad, please, he just said 5 minutes, but I know you
1 minute.
excited to hear from him as I am.
Can I give you the microphone so that everybody can hear you?
يعطيكم العافية. Let me start with this question. In the room, who is dealing directly or indirectly with food, feed, trade, packaging, export, import? Anyone?
أسامة السعيدة.
Everybody in the back.
Now, adding to what Mr. Karajeh has mentioned, when you're doing a business in such a field, I should be your best friend, me and Susie from the commercial service. And we're not really going to offer you kind of the right due diligence regarding the business you are dealing with. At least we might have a history about that company. But also we work for the U.S. government, for the U.S. And with the U.S. comes a lot of benefits. We are here hosted by American Chamber of Commerce. So we're talking about doing business with the U.S., with America. And there are a lot of opportunities. Unfortunately, and thanks to Lana and her team for convening this, but there are a lot of opportunities and opportunities in doing business with the U.S. And there are a lot of benefits, money benefits. We have certain credit guarantee programs that will help you expand your business, expand your trade. Even if you'd like to have a facility in Khaldoun, a big facility that needs a lot of funds, we have a lot of financial tools to help your business expand doing business with the U.S. We have a lot of, my agency does it for free, a lot of free services. And unfortunately, I don't have my business cards, but you could easily reach me out. I'll give you my number if you're interested. And we have a lot of published reports from A to Z, what you should do before doing any business in food or feed. during my career, that is like there is something years in this business, I've been exposed to a lot of problems. This makes me an expert who has been exposed to many problems to advise you how to avoid these problems in trade. So I'll conclude by that. We have a lot to do together and to expand the business opportunities in trade with the US, both directions. Thank you.
Thank you.